Yo, what is up, internet? Okay, so doing a signal boost for Neil over at Stepwise Disc Golf. He just put out a video 1 day ago, and it like elbow drop cue works. I mean, we don't have a huge sample size yet, but it seems like it works. I think it's a much better philosophy than what I was previously using. So I just want to signal boost that. I've done it before. Neil's video on protracting the shoulder to get more structure, I think, was excellent. So we're here again trying to filter more people to Neil's content because I think he's a really bright mind in the disc golf scene. I think he's doing a lot of good work, and I think he deserves some more attention. And I think we, as the global disc golf community, should adopt this cue because I think it's going to work better. So that's the most important thing. This is the video. It's the title is I'm going to be horrible at pronouncing names that are not in the languages that I understand. But Neil said the guy's name is pronounced something like I can't even do it. Sorry, I don't want to screw it up. But it's spelled Jair. And uh, so this is the video. I will link to it. Go watch the video. Don't take my word for it. Watch Neil's video. Get it from the source. And also, I am subscribed to his channel. Please go subscribe to his channel. I think he's going to do a lot of really good work for the disc golf coaching scene. He already has. I think that's going to continue. So please subscribe to his channel. On that note, if you are not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel as well. So I'm just going to go over my thoughts on this cue, what it is from my viewpoint. Again, please go get that also from Neil. I'm sure he will continue to put out content on this idea as he continues to refine it. But I just want to get my take on it down and my vote that you should follow this guy. He's doing really good work. Okay, so let's jump into it. Let me pull up my outline because I already filmed this once, and it was a little rambly even for me, and that's saying something. It probably would have been fine, but I just want to make it a little more polished when possible. I am a teensy bit more caffeinated than usual, so apologies in advance. Okay, so what are we doing? We're doing a signal boost for an elbow drop cue from Neil at Stepwise Disc Golf. The situation: Neil was playing around at a course. Neil met a gentleman. Said gentleman was a little bit of a unicorn for a coach, meaning someone that you don't find often. And it's someone who had been playing for a couple of years, but had not spent any time, one, working on their form, two, filling their head with ideas from YouTube videos. So this is an unbiased human who's just going to respond to your cue with no other stuff in their brain. So that's a really good opportunity. Neil took advantage from it, advantage of it even. They agreed to do some field work after the round, and Neil gave the guy this one cue to fix his form to make him throw 500 feet. Not really, but it did make a significant change. So we'll go over that. So first, part one, my original approach and why it is not as effective always as I want it to be. There's this thing that happens where coaches have bias because they're humans, not supercomputers. So my experience is I am a person with this frame, 5'9", buck 50 after you give me a cheeseburger, and I have pretty darn good shoulder mobility. I can do this. I can be in internal rotation and move pretty well. You know, a lot of people can't get to here, they dip. So that's my experience. So my solution, because of my lens of my experience in this human body, is this isn't a problem. You should be able to do this. A lot of times that works out fine. It worked out fine for me in my process of learning how to throw. A simple swing plane suits me. I can just do that. A lot of people I work with struggle with that a little bit more because of either a actual physical mobility issue that their arm doesn't want to be here, or a motor pattern where their brain, which is very smart, says, hey, there's a lot of very stupid muscles that are very, very poorly designed in your rotator cuff, four little tiny muscles that make you into a baseball pitcher that are at risk for damage if you load them very hard without training sufficiently. So your brain knows that and it says, hey, maybe don't do this. Maybe that's not a good idea. I know this joint is going to be a lot safer if I just clamp it down and control it. So you can just do your disc golf stuff like this, and that'll be cool. It's safe, not effective, because we've taken the lever out of play, and we're going like this. More on that later. But that's what we run into. People want to subconsciously protect their rotator cuff, so they overactivate the lat and pull the elbow down. And that gets in the way of a strong lever and strong structure here, putting the elbow into horizontal upper arm abduction, if you like science words. That's the problem. When that doesn't work is when there's actually a mobility issue, which I think is pretty uncommon, or when there's an existing motor pattern for protecting the shoulder. So if we're going to embrace that the elbow is going to not be on a simple swing plane, where if I'm throwing flat, everything just stays at shoulder height. We're not going to do that because most of the pros don't do that. They pull through with their elbow a little bit lower. So if they're throwing a flat shot, they would be here. That works okay, but oops. As if I have the elbow lower than the swing plane, as I come through, the elbow is going to get pulled up because the shoulder is above the elbow. As I continue to rotate forward, the elbow will go up. That means the disc goes down. That means I get this flare. That means I'm in nose up. So we run into some problems when we introduce some complexity to the plane. So here, simple plane, the problem is mobility and over-recruitment of the lat, which gets you into a scoop. And if we try to fight that by going to a more complex plane, the issue we run into is we still get the scoop. So we need to do something to correct for this. There's two things we can do. They happen in different amounts in different people, and they happen at different times. I am not sure on when that happens yet in order to explain it, but being aware of it is the first key. Understanding that you need to do something to get to nose down. So here, elbow is low. I pull through, I get to this position. One way I can fix it is by supinating my forearm. So I'm just going to rotate the forearm radius and ulnar are going to twist. Boom. Disc is back to flat. So this works. Just supination. This is turn the key. Huge simplification to just say turn the key, but leave that where it is. The other option is if I pull through and I get to here, I can not rotate my forearm, but rotate my humerus from the shoulder. Same thing. So I can get the disc to do that motion from my forearm, boop, boop, or from my shoulder. So both are potential solutions. Realistically, they're probably going to happen in tandem. You're going to have some amount of shoulder rotation to keep the disc on plane, and you're going to have some amount of, gotta say the word right or Chris Taylor's going to make fun of me, forearm supination. So my mistake that I made with Chris Taylor was I said wrist supination, and he says, young man, come sit down. The wrist does not supinate or pronate. The forearm supinates or pronates. And I said, thank you, sir. I stand corrected. Appreciate the correction. Technical language is important when we're describing this stuff because otherwise things go to crap. So my mistake was linguistic. I said wrist because that's how we describe it. We say roll your wrist. But your wrist doesn't roll. Your wrist flexes and extends and deviates towards radius or ulna. I don't remember which is which. But anyways, technical language is good. Thank you, Chris. Okay. So that's my approach. It is just this. Complexity is getting the elbow down. When my approach doesn't work, it's because there's actually a mobility issue or there's a motor pattern issue where you want to activate the lat. Okay, so part two, why is Neil's cue better? More targeted, potentially more effective. It definitely seems to be so far. So my cue was just stay up here. That is a simplification. That is not going to be your finished throw if you're doing my methodology and that works for you. It's just, can you control this little piece of plastic and keep it level the whole time? Because what we run into are people who can't control, and the disc is moving all willy-nilly the whole time. And my thought pattern was just, okay, let's just shut that down. Let's build some consistency where you are controlling the thing the whole time, and then we can move back to something more organic from there. A lot of folks struggled with that though. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So Neil's approach is more targeted because we don't really care about this position. You can be wherever you want to here. Before I stress, like, you don't want your elbow here because you don't want your elbow to end up here in your pocket and in your follow through. So put it where you want it, leave it there, leave it there, leave it there. That doesn't work. It goes from high to low to oops, most commonly. So Neil's approach is, okay, well, what we actually need is this center position. We need the elbow to be up. So let's focus on that. So I don't care about this, but I'm going to do something with the whole arm assembly. Hint this. I'm going to briefcase the disc. Not here. I'm not going to start that, keep it, and then roll out of it. I'm going to start wherever I'm going to start, probably neutral. Then I'm going to internally rotate the whole assembly from the shoulder and with the forearm into my center position, and then I'm going to roll back to where I need to be, which is nose down. So you're going from neutral to internal rotation to slight external rotation to get to nose down. Why does this work better? It works better because you have rotational momentum of the shoulder joint and the forearm going into the spot we care about, and then everything else is kind of going to work around that. So you're starting here, neutral or externally rotated, coming to a center position where you're forcing internal rotation, and then letting whatever happens after that happen after that. So if you're going from internal, or you're going from external to internal, that's going to tend to bounce back to external, which is what we want anyways. So to exaggerate, external rotation, internal rotation, which helps drive the elbow up and keep the elbow up, and then bouncing to some degree of external rotation. Calibration here super matters. How much do you do? How much nose down do you want? But the important part is, I think the easiest way to demo it is really this. Here I'm palm up, forcing external rotation. And then when I come into my center chest position, I'm flopping my arm over. So this goes down, which brings the elbow up. That's the magic. Boom. So I'm getting to this position and then getting to whatever position happens after that. External, internal, external. That keeps your elbow up at the part that we care about, which is center to release. That's the magic. That's why I think Neil's cue works better. Okay, so let's jump into Neil's video. Get that pulled up. Okay, so this is essentially the thumbnail still for the beginning of Neil's video. So the things I want to point out here are, the first one is just the elbow height, essentially, relative to the shoulder plane. So I'm kind of simplifying here because perspective is hard, but we don't need to talk about that right now. So that's essentially the shoulder plane. This is essentially the shoulder plane. And what we're looking at is the height of the elbow below the shoulder plane. So here in this one, it's pretty significant. And in this video, which is after Neil's cue, it's much smaller. Like, we've reduced that angle by about half. So what we care about here is that structure. And here it's that structure. So note this upper arm bone is parallel to the spine. And then here the upper arm bone is not so much parallel to the spine. We have a realistic amount of elbow below shoulder plane, but it's not excessive like it is here. So let me flip you around and do a quick demo on that. So this isn't going to work because there's no lever. This works a lot better. So what I'm looking at is the structure of shoulder to elbow, and you want it here. And as the hips rotate, this structure is driven forward, and then this hinge can do a lot of really good work for us. There's also a little bit of drive in the elbow, realistically. Boom. That's what we want. So why this doesn't work, if my this is silly. If my upper arm is here, then my upper arm rotates with the axis and there's no leverage. So we don't want this. This does not work. There's not a lot of power there. When you do this, then when I rotate the axis, there's a ton of power at the end of that. So hopefully that makes sense. This good structure. This bad structure, rotating it doesn't matter. So it's the same thing here. This structure, bad, no leverage. I get here, leverage. So that position that we want to see was created by Neil's cue of just start here, get to here. That keeps your elbow up, and then throw. There's still more work to do at the end of that, but made a huge change very quickly. So there's that part. Get my outline back here. Okay, so you can see the structure and rotation here. So we're looking at this structure, and as the hips rotate forward, that whole structure is going to rotate forward in structure. Whereas up here, we've already had collapse and it's not going to work. So as we rotate forward, you see the elbow moving forward with the shoulders, and that happens much less so in the top video. Okay, so the issues that are still present, there's just to flag stuff for like putting it into my methodology. There's still too much of this. To me, the rotation. Let me get back to the actual video part. The rotation in the bottom section, the bottom video, just looks a little bit more centered to me, just because of the elbow cue. It's still leaking forward because of the rear leg position, but significant improvement already. So that's an issue. This is an issue. That foot just flopped more closed. And the back foot pushing too much into the front shoulder is still present. But we've made a huge change with the elbow in very little time. So that's the part that I want to highlight. Then another issue, which is something that will need to be addressed if we're using this cue, is that. So in this throw, we still end up with a ton of nose up. But again, how we would fix that is controlling. So we're getting to here and the hit happens here and the disc comes out nose up. So how we would address that is we would have more rotation of the forearm or more rotation of the whole arm so that the disc stays level relative to the swing plane. So that's the calibration of how much forearm supination and how much external rotation from the shoulder do I need to happen going into my hit so that I get to that magical 4 degrees-ish of nose down and I don't end up 10 degrees nose up. So that's the icing. That's the last thing that we'd want to change. So first would be fix the posture. So we don't want to end up here. We want to end up here. So we're going to let the rear leg drift. And then we don't want to end up here. We want to end up here. So we're going to have more rollover of the whole arm assembly going into the hit. Okay, so if you like my style of coaching, please go check out my Patreon. Doing a little promo thing right now. If you sign up at the highest tier, $175, that gets you 4 reviews during the month. In addition to that, to try and fill up my last 2 slots at that level, I'm doing a free 20-minute video call to get established. We can do that right on the front end or after your first review if you want to ask follow-up questions. So if you like my stuff, check out my Patreon. Please sub to the channel. Please go check out Neil's stuff, Stepwise Disc Golf. I'll put a link to his channel down below. Please sub to him as well. I think he's doing excellent work and he's going to continue to do so. All right, so let's wrap there. Thank you so much, Internet. See you next time.